Welcome to the show. I'm Mary Grace, the voice of sanity, to help you navigate politics, culture, wellness, world events, and faith. I have with me today a special guest. We're going to talk about a topic that will be sensitive for some people. And I want to tell you before we start our conversation, if you or somebody that you know has been through trafficking, if you have been victimized in some way, even if you've recovered or if you have small children nearby, I want to tell you before we go into this conversation that there may be some sensitive issues that come up for you or for the people around you. That being said, I want to introduce Craig Sawyer, the founder of Veterans for Child Rescue. Many of you are probably familiar with him because this is not new to him. He has been doing this work for quite some time. He also produced a film um, which the name of it is completely escaping me right now because I I
Contraland. Yep.
Contraland, thank
Yeah.
you. Contraland, and I literally typed it out earlier. So Contraland, it's on YouTube. The link is in the show notes here. But welcome to the show. I'm gonna let you continue the introduction because there's so much that we could say about you. Welcome.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I won't go into a long intro other than I went into the SEAL teams to fight the worst evil that I could identify, which was international terrorism. So I ended up at the highest level of counterterrorism in the SEAL teams, and then I transferred to federal law enforcement, and then ended up now founding Veterans for Child Rescue to expose child trafficking in the United States and disrupt it, to eradicate it if at all possible. So we expose it through films like Contraland, our television show, Defending Our Children, our radio show of the same name, Defending Our Children, churches, public speeches, social media campaigns, NASCAR placement, billboards, every way that we can saturate the public and the culture with the information of what's happening to the children so that we can all collectively turn against it and just spare the little ones. So that's what I
Mhm.
do. That's my background. That's my approach to it. Is just really wanting to stop the worst evil, the worst harm that I can identify. And
Yeah.
those who are hunting and harming children in the United States is the most unjust, the most cruel and vicious uh, crime that I can identify. And when we unpack it a little bit more in the talk, people will understand why. If they don't already, knowledge is power. And so, as you stated, it may be a little bit of a painful subject to face, but knowledge is power, right? Truth is love.
Yes.
You love people. If you care about them, you want them empowered with the truth, the understanding of what's happening so that they can act in their own best interest and protect themselves. And that's what we're going to unpack a little bit today, Mary.
Good, good, thank you, and I think I think we should just jump right in and talk about the border because I think that you said something before we went live, and, I want to review a little bit for our listeners. We've actually had people on the show. We've had Tara Rodas on the show. She is a
Oh, nice.
whistleblower,
Yeah.
who talked about, working she actually went to volunteer to help with children who were transitioning from coming over the border to being in a government facility, and that was when she learned, the nefarious activities that were going on, which was that these children were actually being trafficked, and she blew the whistle. You guys might remember that she blew the whistle about I think it was about 80,000 children that had gone missing from the system. Well, that number has increased to about 325,000. And,
That they admit.
as you said, like, kids don't just go missing. So what's really going on here? Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, this is people think the border is a crossing the border illegally is a victimless crime. That couldn't be further from the truth. So tell us
Yeah.
what you know.
Well, I think when you're trying to awaken a public who has not been informed about a harm, a crime, or an injustice, it's important to do it systematically and factually. So, what we're learning about in the very darkest elements of it, I don't talk about until we can factually demonstrate that. But what we can talk about are the convictions that we have. We got 29 child predators with 100% conviction rate. We work with federal, local law enforcement on the border and deep into the United States. you talked about Tarly Rodas. God bless her. She and other whistleblowers are talking about government sponsored child trafficking. And that's not a stretch to state it that way. That is fact.
Yes.
It's been disclosed in congressional session. They admit it, but nothing is being done about it yet. So the harm is to people in all directions. I don't care what nation a child comes from; they are precious. I don't care what they look like; they are sacred and divine little beings. They are the purest among us. And to have anybody exploit them for political gain or for power or for financial gain, which all of it is about ultimately, sickens me. It's enraging and it's heartbreaking. So when you have hundreds of thousands of children, we're talking about now close to 400,000 children. They estimate that the federal government is admitting to losing. Well, I've lost a couple sets of car keys throughout my lifetime, and it was devastating. I don't like to lose things, and
Right.
what? But that's not a human being. That's not a soul, right? I don't
Right.
lose souls, and when our federal government does it, well, what would 5 or 10 lost souls be? Oh, that's catastrophic. That's unthinkable. Let's go find them. Well, what about it when it's tens of thousands? Well, it's hundreds of thousands of children over the past 4 years who the government goes, oops, sorry, we've missed them. We don't know where they are. Well, where's the giant investigation to find these children and show us that they're okay? What's
Right.
become of them? And aren't we, if we're going to have an administration that just waives the rapid DNA test? Oh, on day one of the Biden administration, we're no longer going to do rapid DNA on the border so that we can determine that this child is with its biological parents and therefore likely to be okay.
Hmm.
Why
Hmm.
was that waived? We were never given any reason why
Hmm.
that was waived. And we've had these children pouring in without their parents.
Okay,
And
let's go
so
back to this for just a minute
what's,
because I
yeah,
wanna I wanna unpack this and explain to our listeners what you're talking about. So, under, I think, Obama, it was it the Flores Amendment that, um, was put in place to prevent separating families, right? I think that's what it was. So, the idea was that when people come over the border, you wouldn't be able to separate them, and that would actually help with the entire process of processing, returning, bringing in whatever they needed to do. Well, it was done to prevent, ostensibly by human rights groups, to prevent the exploitation of children. However, and during the Trump administration, they actually implemented DNA testing, rapid DNA, to determine if somebody was bringing their own child across the border so that policy wouldn't be prevented because what was happening was that people were literally renting kids or stealing them and bringing them with them in order to get across the border to exploit the non-separation policy. But what you're saying is that one of the first things that Biden did was to throw out the rapid DNA testing, and that would open the door for more further victimization of these children because there's no way to tell if the people who are bringing them across the border are related to them in any way at all, right?
yeah,
So that's
yeah.
the backstory.
It was immediate day one.
Okay.
And, I've got Border Patrol agents as friends who it's heartbreaking for them, but they'll say, Craig, I've got children coming that'll have no parents with them, and they're coming with whomever, and they don't have any belongings. They don't have the right food. They're coming in bad shape, and they've
Mhm.
got just a note
Yeah.
safety pin to their underwear in some cases with an apartment number in Miami. And oh, by the way, Craig, I've seen that same exact apartment number, like a two-bedroom apartment in Miami,
Mhm.
uh, from 30 other adults from 3 different countries that same day. Oh yeah, there's going to be my permanent address. They just use the same. It's like it goes out on the net, like,
Mhm.
oh, here's an address. Just throw it to Border Patrol because this administration wants to flood the country
Mhm.
with so many people that are coming in illegally, to where if you just show them an address, they'll just process you right on in,
And the
give you
people
cash,
that
give
were
you a packet, give you a transportation deep into the United States and
yeah.
benefits and all of it. Why? Well, we're not told why, but the harm
Mhm.
is whatever it is, and so children are being brought in and just sent.
And
And this
people
border
that
patrol
were
agent has to take a child
yeah.
and go, man, I know this is wrong, but she or he's not able to go with it. I can't do this unless they want to walk
Mhm.
away from their job. And many have,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
can you imagine the demoralization? You sign up as a border patrol agent to support and defend the Constitution, defend our border against all comers, and then you're made to escort criminal invaders in and those who are bringing in children, trafficking children, and make sure that they get their money and their benefits, and they're sent in on the taxpayers' dime to go deeper into the country and traffic those children to who God knows who. I mean, Tarly Rodas, one of her friends, Carlos, was a young man who used to drive the children to the
Yes,
sponsored,
yes, I'm glad yeah,
right?
please talk
For
about
the
that. I
sponsors.
was gonna talk about this. So, when he was dropping the kids off at the airport, for example, right? Was he the one that would deliver them to their sponsors?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
tell us about that.
So Health and Human Services, which Tarly Rodas used to work for, um, used to vet the sponsors. So if a sponsor, meaning someone who wants an immigrant child. So I don't know who all they're giving him to, orphanages, families, individuals, but they would vet them. In other words, do a background check on them and make
Mhm,
sure that it was a likely, safe person or couple to give
right,
that child to. Why would you bring a child and give it to someone that you haven't checked and have no reasonable expectation that that child's going to be
yeah,
safe, right? That wouldn't be responsible, especially if you're doing it on the behalf of the federal government. So this young man, Carlos, was delivering as a part of the government sponsored contracts to move these unaccompanied minors to the sponsors. And he started seeing, wait a minute, these sponsors are cartel members. These are traffickers and rapists. I
mhm,
recognize what I'm looking at here. And he was going back and letting his supervisors know, hey, look, I just delivered a van load of children to predators. Like, this is no bueno. This is not okay. And essentially, what he described is his supervisors saying, well, yeah, go back and hurry up because now there's more to deliver. Like, they didn't care. So
and we'll
there's,
lose our contract if you don't
yeah,
deliver
yeah,
them
it's
on
it's
time.
it's all about the money. So
Mhm,
imagine my heartbreak. Here I am just trying to stop people from harming children and selling them and this slave trade and God knows what all's happening to them. We know a lot of what's happening to them. It's
mhm,
unspeakable. But you're trying to do that and you learn that people value a dollar or the brand protection of their entity, their agency, or their company over the welfare of children.
mhm,
And I try to comprehend how our nation got this way, how we slid so far down the moral and ethical slope into this abyss of vile predation and callous atrocity that's happened to children on industrial scale. We're talking about a scale that generates more criminal revenue than all pro sports combined. That's huge. That's not a small crime, and it's not somewhere else. It's here in the continental United States.
mhm,
And our taxpayers' dollars are paying for it because HHS is contracting companies like MVM, who also contract to the CIA, to move children who are
interesting.
unaccompanied to now sponsors who are unvetted. So we're taking
Right,
children who are brought to our border through God knows what circumstances and take them and deliver them to predators who are harming, slaughtering, murdering, ritually sacrificing, organ harvesting them, or God knows what, or maybe taking them and just adopting them and having a great life together. We don't know because there's no accountability
mhm,
and you don't
mhm,
lose several hundred thousand. Look at a pro football stadium now. What do they seat? Uh,
80,000.
okay, that's huge. But how many of those pro football stadiums with every seat full of children are we looking at lost?
Mhm. Mhm.
Where are the children? I don't see
Yeah.
anybody saying, "Oh, here's one. We recovered one. We had an
Mhm.
investigation. We found two or three at a half, at a in a family that's happy and healthy. Yay!" We're not seeing that. What's going on, folks? Where are all the children?
Mhm.
And why is this industrial scale predation being covered up? There's a lot to investigate and expose. Sunlight is best antiseptic for corruption,
Mhm.
and I'm grateful that we have a new administration coming in
Yes,
that
I was gonna ask
seriously
you about that.
with the will
Yeah.
to do the hard work, the heavy lifting to expose this. And Tom Homan, the border czar, I know Tom. I'm on the Border 9/11 Commission with him. He knows what I bring as far as the template to break the back of corruption within the federal law enforcement
Okay.
community and to steer our federal forces toward
Mhm.
the child trafficking rings. So I look forward to making those contributions.
Okay, let's talk about this because I've had Kash Patel on the show, and one of the things he talks about a lot is that Congress has the ability to fence the money, to withhold the money from organizations that are not doing the will of the administration. That's one of the things he's proposed. We know, hopefully, RFK Jr. will get confirmed as the head of HHS, but we also know that HHS has a bigger budget than the rest of government combined. And that they're over so many things. I mean, their hand is in everything, right? We're looking at the refugee resettlement. We're looking at all these NGOs. We're looking at they're in schools. I mean, they have their tentacles in everything. Um, what practical things do you see happening to even just to stop the funnel of the kids in through the funding of the NGOs? Is that something that people can expect to see a change in, like, realistically under this new
Absolutely.
administration?
Absolutely. Look, you don't, the United States can draw a square anywhere on this planet and dominate that square, whatever's in
Okay.
sight. We can do
Okay.
that right in the middle of Afghanistan and dominate everything that happens in that square. We haven't had the will to control our border in over the last 40 years.
Okay.
When
Okay.
we when now that we are reestablishing leadership and the intent to serve the people in good faith, then there is the will to have control on our border. Now, we are pro
Mhm.
immigration, we are pro legal, safe immigration. All Americans have been. We celebrate that we're a nation of migrants. It's the illegal and unsafe
Mhm.
chaos that we've witnessed over the last 4 years that's not okay, that nobody's on board with. So, can there be a rapid turnaround? Absolutely, Mary. Look, the
Mhm.
morale is going to go through the roof for the Border Patrol and Customs guys that are having to do that, and the sheriff's departments and the police that are having to deal with this wide open border. The Mexican drug cartels are brutal. They make many billions of dollars annually, and they run a big business, and they harm a lot of people, and they control a lot of people. Their drugs kill more Americans than any war ever has annually. So
Mhm.
we
Yeah,
we've lost more Americans in 1 year than we have an entire decade in the Vietnam War. In fact,
to
more than
drugs.
double what we lost in a decade
Yeah. Yeah.
in Vietnam. We lost in 1 year just to fentanyl alone. So the Chinese are laughing that they're sending these chemicals and these drugs through the Mexican drug cartels into our nation and eradicating our populace and causing mayhem. And we've had a complete failure in leadership. So can it
Mhm.
turn around? Yes, ma'am, and it will if we have people like Tom Homan on the job. If President Trump gives him the free rope
It
to
looks like you
go,
will.
yes, and I believe he will too, and I'm celebrate it. Uh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I so I trust Tom, and I believe that his heart's in the right place and he means business. And I think
Mhm.
he'll have
Mhm.
the tools afforded to him to make a difference. And there's going to be a surge in the will to win and gain control. Again, it's not about being against anybody, it's about having control and
Mhm.
order so that there is safety and there's a process. so that things aren't being flooded and in a chaotic manner where so many people are being exploited and harmed. So that return to order and sanity and safety is a beautiful one. So that alone, Mary, is going to turn around what's happening with a lot of the children. So it's going to
Yep.
be, and if we
Yep.
have to now also control what's coming in through our ports and the shipping containers and all the other methods by which they've been doing
Mhm.
it, and
Mhm.
flying, we've got to get a control of whatever HHS is doing through companies like MVM, flying children directly in from other nations to get past the border altogether to deliver them through the sick predators, the Epstein,
Yeah. Yeah.
Maxwell client list type elites, and the Diddy type elites, and the Hollywood elites who want to do the sick, unspeakable things to children, and all those who want the spiritual power and the financial wealth and the political power for having harmed the children. We have to cut their legs out from under them and block that from every possible avenue. And I think we can and will. That all that information from people that have been in the fight, like myself and others,
Mhm.
need to be able to share that with this incoming admin and make those contributions to the overall fight. And I think that will and is coming together. And I celebrate the process of shining the light on the wicked and the evil, and bringing about the systematic process to regain control and order and justice.
Do
And
you
just
think that I just wanna ask about the elites because, we've seen mass panic leading up to this election. I think they all knew the way it was going, all of these people who came out endorsing Kamala. But a couple of things when it comes to whistleblowers, to people making confession about what they've been involved with. Do you think that do you think that this incoming administration is going to first of all, are they gonna protect whistleblowers? But secondly, do you think they'll make deals with some of the, uh, Hollywood, from the people from the entertainment industry, from the sports industry, those people, do you think they're gonna make some deals to help recover these children, to break open these networks? Because I'm wondering about the nuts and bolts of this because there's so much secrecy, there's so much hidden,
yeah,
and even when it comes to the cartels, I mean, you're saying that we're gonna break that up, but we know that, the dollar is a mighty thing, and the greed that we've seen from these people, like you said, how did we get here? I don't see them just laying down their arms and walking back over the border and saying, "You know what? You guys, we're sorry we did this to you. It's your country. Take it and prosper." They're gonna fight. They're not going down without a fight.
they're going to
So
fight, but
how
they're going to die, Mary. Look, if you oh no, I'm talking from
Okay.
a position
Yeah.
of authority on
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
If you open the DoD war chest with JSOC and SEAL Team 6 and the Delta operators with the best intelligence our nation has and the
Okay.
sophistication of the weaponry that we have in our war chest, you crack that open against the Mexican drug cartel, it'll be an eradication of them.
So you're
They'll
talking
be
about irregular you're talking
systematically,
about
expertly, surgically exterminated wherever they are.
special
Now,
forces in protecting finally
if
actually
they are
protecting.
designated a terrorist organization, they
Okay.
are,
Okay.
and there are people around Trump that are trying to get him to make that designation. That hasn't happened yet. I think
Mhm.
this time around with this administration, I think that a lot of the naivety that pervaded last time is gone, right?
Mhm.
Some of these people have had their homes raided by the FBI under
Yeah.
false charges, and their
Trump
wife's panty drawers raided, and
Yeah.
they've been defiled and humiliated, or at least that was the attempt about that gross mismanagement and abuse of authority. So the people
Mhm.
that are coming in now are under no illusions about how dark, how hostile, and utterly corrupt this criminal network is that has had control. So, will he designate the Mexican drug cartels as the terrorist organizations that they are? I don't know. I pray that he
Mhm.
has that level of fortitude and
Mhm.
courage, because if he does,
Mhm.
everything can change.
Right,
All the
and
strangleholds that they have, because wherever they operate against the best interests of the United States and American people, they will be hunted down and exterminated, eradicated. I mean,
okay.
You're talking
Within,
about
so
the
if they're
most
within our
surgical
borders,
killers.
yeah.
Yeah, the most surgical killers on the face of the planet, bar none.
Mhm. And the gangs. So we're looking at gangs that have taken over almost entire cities or portions of cities. Are you looking at that as well? Do you think that that's going to be eradicated?
Well, that's just another byproduct, if you will,
Okay.
of the the root cause, and the root problem is a lack of will to win, and an
Mhm.
utter, let's call it what it is, utter corruption in the upper
Mhm.
rank of this current admin. And
Okay.
the predators recognize that and they exploit it, any loopholes and weakness. And so, really, these gangs are going to recognize what's happening. You won't
Mhm.
need tier one level operators from JSOC to clean out
Okay.
a gang from a hotel in the United States. You just let local law enforcement clean that out with a couple SWAT teams.
Mhm.
But they're
You
perfectly
yeah.
capable of doing that.
I
But
think
just
some of
back them
them are
up legally. Say
yeah,
clean, get these gangs out of our hotels.
and we'll
This
back
is not
you.
going to happen. This is ridiculous. I think on
Mhm.
day one they'll probably pack up and be out of there anyway, knowing what's coming,
Right.
because
Yeah.
Mr. Trump's not playing around. I don't think.
Right, right. I think that's already happening. I mean, one of the things that I've noticed with Trump is that, he does give people an opportunity to do the right thing and to avoid being at the other end of a bad decision. And I think some people are self-deporting, they're making the decision to see themselves out rather than to be escorted out by ICE or the US military or to meet their maker in an untimely fashion. So we can continue to hope that that happens. I want to talk a little bit about your organization and what role you play, not only with awareness and eradication, but also with the victims, because I that's one of the pillars of what you do. Having had personal experience with this, with your own family, and then also just seeing time and time again, it's not it's not enough just to rescue somebody, because what they suffer during the process can stay with them for quite some time. Can you talk a little bit about that and what your organization does?
Yeah. Well, look, I've worked in 6 or 7 different agencies over the years, depending on how you slice it, because sometimes they change names and get passed under different titles, different sub departments. But I've worked at the highest level of counterterrorism, been to 60 countries, Mary, all around the world in
Mhm.
defense of the nation. And a friend of mine from the CIA let me know that the area that we had grown up just north of Houston was the hottest epicenter of child trafficking in the United States. He began to explain to me what he was finding out and all the different ways that it was done to the kids. And I felt so upset about it that
Mhm.
I realized this is my fight. I have to. This is worse than international terrorism. Terrorists usually kill adults,
Yeah.
although innocent adults. This is the children, and they're not just selling the children; they're ritually abusing the children with
Yeah.
an intent to horrify and deeply, catastrophically traumatize this
Yeah.
little soul. And
Yeah.
I don't want to get too deep into that, but it's very upsetting. So out of love, out of just love for the little ones,
Mhm.
I founded Veterans for Child Rescue to expose this, because I saw that the way this was done, it's a covert operation run domestically at industrial scale. So this is government sponsored, a
Mhm.
lot of it. The federal government has full knowledge of
Yeah.
this industrial scale child trafficking in the United States, or it wouldn't be even 1% at the scale that it is. Because if the federal government did not want it to exist, it would not exist. You try opening up a lemonade stand without a proper permit, you're going
Or
to last
raising a
about,
squirrel.
yeah, you're going to last about 5 minutes, right? So people will abuse their authority and they like throwing their badges and guns around, except for when it's against real crooks, hardcore guys, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Or something that's spiritually so dark that so many people are actually in on it. They don't talk about it. It's like the thing that goes unsaid. All that has to come down now. All of it, all of the dark covert, the secrecy of this has to be torn down. Sunlight is the best antiseptic for corruption. It has to happen. I don't care what people's titles or family bloodlines are, or any of
Mhm.
it. It has to be exposed. We at Veterans for Child Rescue, to better answer your question, we made a documentary called Contraland to expose
Yeah.
it. Exposing it is a first step in bringing a cultural turnaround. And in the process of filming it, I learned that with my federal law enforcement background as a federal criminal investigator, I could strike up pretty good relationships with law enforcement and DAs and gain their cooperation. We could run joint sting operations and bring a lot of talent to the table and capture the predators who are out there hunting the children to
Mhm.
abduct them and put them into child trafficking. So we started arresting those predators, and we got 29 now with a 100% conviction rate. We've got 87 warrants that all of those should be served, but that's a whole nother story for probably another time. But it's
Are these
difficult.
for American are you talking about American citizens that you have the warrants out on? Or are
Usually,
they
now some are
cartel
not.
members?
Some are not, and so those warrants don't get served because it's a very tricky and sticky warrant to serve internationally, and it just gets
Mhm,
to it gets
mhm,
put in the too hard box by different agencies that don't want to go through all the
mhm, mhm,
diplomatic relations and fight for a guy for them to extradite him back over here and us put him in prison.
mhm.
All like he's on the other side of the fence. We're probably not going to go fetch him until he comes back and we catch him again. Then it's done.
Right, right, I got
So,
it. Yeah.
there's a lot of that. And, George Soros funds the campaigns of DAs and judges
Mhm,
and attorneys general and puts them in those seats with the agreement that they will not prosecute entire categories of harmful crimes, including child trafficking. So, what's up with that? Well, it's a spiritually motivated network of people that all believe that doing these things to children are what they're to be a part of and what gives them their wealth and power. They'll not talk about
mhm,
it. So, does that. Then again, that's been talked about in
mhm,
active congressional session. That's not a theory, it's demonstrated fact, yet
mhm.
they allow him to continue. What talk about a glaring conflict of interest.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's difficult to get a lot more done about it. Begin with this new incoming administration, things will get
Mhm,
entirely better. I pray. So we've done that. We've run the sting operations. We arrest the predator. We rescue the children when we can. But what we found when we started to try to do rescues, you need if you're going to do it continental United States in CONUS, you need a power of attorney from the parents and you need a warrant from law enforcement to go and make that extraction to make that child safe. And it's like, wow. So it's almost like the deck is stacked against an NGO. You're not allowed to go get a child to rescue them because you're guilty of kidnapping, right? So I
Whoa,
see
whoa, whoa,
how the
whoa, whoa,
whole
okay,
system is. Yeah,
hold on just a
you go
second.
take
This
a
is this
child
is
who's being trafficked, Mary, and you can be arrested for kidnapping, no matter your motive.
okay.
If you do it
Listen.
in an area where law enforcement are corrupt, you're going to find yourself in prison.
All right, we have to take a quick break, and I wanna come back to this. Oh, this is crazy. This
That's
is a
some of
whole
that.
new.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
I
work
mean,
through it, but that's how
yeah,
tricky it
the
can be.
the level of jackassery that we see from government, from
Yeah,
local on up to the federal level is just it's mind numbing. But
yeah.
let's take a quick break. I've got a couple of sponsors I want to highlight, and we'll come right back. To my listeners, thank you for all of your good comments that I'm seeing. If you're seeing this on any of my platforms, please share it now. Please be sure and subscribe. Go to my website, marygracemedia.com, get on the email list so that you don't miss shows like this. This is a conversation you're not going to see in the mainstream because they're part of the problem. They are involved in this, they are hiding it. And so if you get on my mailing list, you hear conversations like this, marygracemedia.com. You also go to that website and go and find all of my affiliate partners. You can shop with America First companies that support shows like this. Two of the companies I want to highlight today are our friends at griddownchowdown.com. They're the ones that bring you freeze-dried American-grown beef. This helps you save the farmland right here in America from being purchased and taken over by foreign entities. We're going to see a quick commercial for that, and then also we're talking about HHS. We're talking about taking back our health in America, and the way that people do that is through working with a functional medicine doctor like our friend Dr. Troy Sproul and his team at Synapse. So stick around for just a second. We're going to watch these great ads. Always tell them that Mary Grace sent you, and we'll be right back in about 60 or 90 seconds.
This is my brother, and I'm Nace, and we're at the Grid Down Chowdown, and this is Larry, who is a local rancher that we've partnered with. Now, Larry, you've been ranching for over 4 generations, is that correct?
That's correct. I'm 3rd generation, my son's 4th generation, and I've got some grandkids that are 5th generation.
Man, that's awesome.
We've been here for quite a while, yeah.
All right, now, Larry, your cattle is grass-fed, grass-finished, and pasture-raised, just like God intended them to be.
Yes, because I want to know what's in that animal,
Right.
what it's been fed, and so the only way to do that is for us to keep it all natural, just like God has done it for years and years and years, thousands of years.
How has partnering up with us helped you and your ranch?
Well, it's allowed us to develop a market that we didn't have before, one that can get directly to the consumer, and that's great.
And just remember, more importantly, with every package that you buy, we put a salvation track in there. So from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you for allowing us to do what we believe that God has us here to do. And just remember, God loves you. He really does.
Amen.
Go to griddownchowdown.com and use promo code MaryGrace. Americans spend more now than ever on healthcare, and we're sicker than almost anybody in the world. We've put our trust in a system that's completely let us down. Dr. Troy Sproul and the team at Synapse Center for Health and Healing have changed all that. They are a functional medicine clinic, and they get to the root cause of what's made you sick in the first place. Once they do that, they give you solutions to help you get out of that. This is the way that medicine was meant to be practiced, and this is what they're doing. They're changing the entire system from the inside out, one person at a time, and you could be one of those people. And so when you're working with the team at Synapse, they're giving you solutions and not just prescriptions. That's a game changer for me. When you set up a free discovery call with Synapse, you're starting on a journey of healing. You're starting on a journey of getting answers. And that's why I've partnered with them, because I want you to be healthy. I want your family to be healthy. I want you to have all of the resources that you need to steward the body and the health that God's given you. Go to officialsynapse.com and tell them Mary Grace sent you. That's Official Synapse, SYNAPSE.com. Okay, we're back. I am Mary Grace, and this is the Mary Grace Show. I have with me Craig Sawyer, Veterans for Child Rescue. There was a crazy thing that he said before we went to the break. We're going to come back to that in just a second. But I think my next question is going to feed right into that. At the federal level, not even the state, local, what percentage of elected officials are involved in child trafficking? When we know that number, it will make a lot of sense when we think about the fact that the government hasn't stopped this.
Yeah, I wish I knew the percentage, Mary.
Okay.
I can't claim to.
Do you have
But
do you have a hunch? I mean,
I could tell you we've had very little support. When we run our joint sting operations, we'll have up to 9 agencies involved. And the
Mhm.
federal agencies will show up, but we really run the op, and they will assist, but there's not really much for them to do. So they kind of observe, and it's the local law enforcement that actually puts the handcuffs on
Okay.
and processes the arrest
Mhm.
once the
Mhm.
crime has been committed, and I give the word go. So
Okay.
um, we like the rank and file agents that come to help us, but the heads of their agencies, a lot of them don't really have much will to really intervene in this. And let's talk about. I got to be somewhat careful about this one, but we ran a joint sting operation near Nashville about 4 or 5 months ago now,
Okay.
and we got 1 arrest and 70 warrants because I think there's not much done against child trafficking in that area.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of organized crime there. and it
Wow.
was like hitting a hornet's nest. There was a media reporter there who's got a notorious reputation of covering up for organized crime, murders and abductions and rapes by
Mhm.
the organized crime network there. And he makes inconvenient stories go away. And he immediately came out when we made the first arrest. He got wind of it and he began attacking law enforcement there, trying to take their badges and guns, trying to stop them from making those 70 warrants that we already had the evidence for those.
Mhm.
So then
Physically attacking them?
he was trying to take he was trying to do it through a legal method of accusing them of being crazy because child trafficking is just a conspiracy theory, and it
Right.
was desperate and
Yeah.
really pathetic, and it didn't work. And he was using his news channel to do a smear campaign on this law enforcement police department. And he would go from person to person, the assistant chief to the chief, to the lead detective, smearing them desperately and
Mhm.
trying to hold legal hearings to take their badges and guns. And when that
Okay.
didn't work, he reached out to TBI, Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, with
Yeah.
a state-run uh, investigations agency. And he called upon some favors within that organization to come
Mhm.
and raid the Millersville Police Department, which they did, and raid the assistant chief's home, which they did, and take all of the evidence that the assistant chief had compiled in joint joint federal task forces over the last 14 years investigating high level organized crime in that region of the United States, all the way down to the Gulf Coast. So we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars in real estate loan fraud, BRICS nations,
Mhm.
Chinese, Mexican drug cartels, money pouring into the real estate
Yeah.
market
Yeah.
there. It's connected to Maricopa County and Arizona here.
It's
A
always
lot of them,
Maricopa. Always
yeah,
goes back to Maricopa.
and
Yeah.
the municipal bonds that they're using to pay off the side deals for these politicians that they install. So he knows all. There's
Who
so
is
much of
this
it.
reporter? Can we name names here? I
Sure, his
want
name's
people.
Phil Williams. Phil
Phil
Williams at
Williams.
Channel
What
5,
and what's his organization?
Channel 5 News.
And out of Nashville?
Yeah.
Yeah, um like who's paying him? Because he's an activist, not a reporter.
Whoa, 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 whoa. We don't get to talk about that, Mary. Oh, he's
Yeah,
just a reporter. You don't get to ask
but
questions
oh,
about
my
why.
listeners will dig into
Yeah.
this. They'll
Yeah,
find
look,
it.
this
They'll
guy
find out.
began,
Yeah.
look, he began panicking so frantically, Mary. And for your strong Christians, they'll understand this. God let me see that man immediately through discernment. I could just tell, I
Mm,
knew he was frantically covering for
okay.
child traffickers. And we began investigating and finding out who he's factually connected to and what his history is and who he's personally surrounded by. And we're like, oh, no wonder he's panicking. So he
Okay.
is desperate to make child trafficking go away, or the exposure of it go away.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
now what you have are the congressional reps in Tennessee confronting Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, the state-run agency, saying, hey, you need to restore and return that evidence back to the police because
Mhm.
you're being seen. You're being exposed right now as covering
Mhm.
up for organized
It's
crime, and it's no
interesting.
bueno. It's
These
not good.
people, like, thou doth protest too much, right?
Yep, yep,
If
yep,
you had just let it be,
yep.
then, you
But
wouldn't
here's
have
the
tipped
thing.
your
Here's
hand.
here's the thing. Here's where a tiny little NGO like Vets for Child Rescue pokes
Mhm.
our spear in the eye of the dragon. We had those 70 warrants, and it was leaked to that reporter that we
Mhm.
had the tech and the intel to exploit the devices of those who were arrested on these
Interesting.
warrants. So when they were raided or pulled over, when high threat, traffic stops, whatever, when their devices were exploited, then we could follow the money and see who all was playing
Yeah.
with who, all the different communications, all the travel. It all becomes clear, right?
Right.
So Phil Williams was personally upset about that. He was very panicked about that, and he was yelling about it on his program, and he committed extensive defamation, malicious defamation, routinely on his show, which he will be
Interesting.
legally held accountable for.
Is his
That's coming.
device in your
Yeah.
repertoire?
So we'll just leave it
Yeah.
at that. But
Okay.
that's where he came onto the scene, and
Wow.
it's bad. So now a lot of his own followers are asking him questions that he can't answer, and
Mhm.
he's begun becoming more and more and more exposed because of his behavior. It doesn't fit. Like, it's not rational behavior. And normally, I'm told there locally, when he'll take a story and lead with it, and the other channels will follow. None followed on this one. He's out there by
Right.
himself. They're all hanging back, going, "What are you doing, Phil? You're
Mhm.
lost it."
Mhm.
And
Okay.
but he can't stop himself. I don't think he's in control of himself right now. I think the
Yeah.
terror within him of what he's involved in, what he's guilty of, and what he's committed, and what all the evidence is there on him, and what the proper, appropriate punishment would be for those crimes. I think he can't stop panicking over, and so we'll just
Oh,
see how the law plays out and
I'm
how it
looking at his
all.
Twitter feed right now. He's obsessed with you. He's tweeting about you today.
Wow.
Um,
Well, see, look, he blocked me because I was asking him
okay.
questions like, why aren't you talking about the children, Phil?
Uh-huh.
Like,
Uh-huh.
nobody's questioning whether or not all of these criminals are in your area and they're stalking the children,
Uh-huh.
and the nature of their conversations to the law enforcement that they thought were children was so vile and so vulgar, it brought law enforcement to tears when they read how much of this was being um, put to children who were just on benign apps trying to make friends. He
Mhm.
won't talk about it. He won't talk about child trafficking. He won't talk about any of it. But he's just trying to discredit anybody that exposes the crime. So so he
Interesting.
wouldn't answer my questions, and I answered all of his questions, but he's running from me. So he blocked me from his Twitter, yet he still stalks my page and posts about me like some creepy stalker. So I don't know why
Yeah.
he's perving my page and creeping me, other than he's just so desperate and not at himself that he just can't bear it. It's
Yeah, so I just posted I posted a Google link, but it's his Twitter for you guys who wanna go find him, it's at NC5 Phil Williams on X. So, yeah, let's give him some love, you guys. It's and I think he's on Facebook. If you just Google him, yeah, he's on Facebook as well. He doesn't have a big his Facebook page isn't even half of mine. Phil Williams NC5 on Facebook. So go for it. Let's, you know, find out more about this guy. So let's go back to what you were saying. You said that if your organization goes in to rescue a child,
any,
that any organization, any
yeah,
child rescue organization, like in Sound of Freedom, you can get you actually could be uh, prosecuted for kidnapping. So you go to a kidnapper, a child trafficker, you locate a child, you try to extract the child, and you get uh punished for kidnapping. Is that like
possibly. Yeah, it's not legal to move a child without a power of attorney. That's the bottom line. It's not
okay.
legal to move them without the power of attorney from their parents. Well, look, if you know who the parents are, and the parents know that their child is missing, and they're
Mhm,
willing to sign a power of attorney over, and you have a warrant from law enforcement to go get the child, what do you need with a third party NGO? You don't. So
mhm,
that's how the system in the continental United States prevents anybody from rescuing children. Now, we still get rescues, but we get them in ways that you don't have to go kick doors in and physically, extract them. So,
mhm. Okay,
with all of
okay.
the intel and the cases and the
Mhm.
investigations, we work with law enforcement to push them all of that evidence and get those
Okay,
rescues done.
okay.
And they happen through any of a number of different ways. But what we do mostly is just expose the covert crime to the populace who doesn't know that it exists.
Mhm, mhm.
So
What
we
are
can't
some
we can't
signs
fight it.
So we've got so we're talking about children who are brought across the border as a commodity, to be trafficked,
And
and
out
but
of
I
home.
but but
Let's
I
bring
was
this
gonna
up.
say, I wanna talk about home because I heard a statistic, this was, like, back in 2016, that a a very large percentage of the children who go missing in the Northern Virginia area are young Black and brown girls, conveniently located very close to, where Congress and Senate is, right? Right outside of DC, like, that it's a disproportionately large amount of girls. Even, going on 10 years ago, I heard this. But we're talking about children who are trafficked into the country, but what about the children who go missing in our country, the American children? What kind of numbers are we looking at for that?
It's hard to put numbers on it. We do a lot of research from National Center of Missing and Exploited Children and
Mhm.
other entities who put out data and stats, but they're all so wildly different.
Okay. Okay.
Um, we before the border wall was abandoned 4 years ago, about 80% of the children they estimate that were being bought and sold in the United States were taken from parents by Child Protective Services, which is typically a state run
Mm.
entity. So they'll come in, and we hear this extensively that they like to target single mothers, and she may be an immigrant who doesn't know what legal recourse she has.
Mhm.
She may be working multiple jobs trying to feed her kids. Maybe she's got one or two or three kids, and she's doing her level best. God bless her. Well, CPS can come in and say, we're the authority here, and we see that we don't like the way that you're caring for your kids. That one looks a little dirty. That one over there looks a little thin. We think we've decided. So we're taking them. We're the authority. We're taking your children, and they're going to go. That's it. We're taking them. So they'll put them
Mhm.
into the foster care system.
Mhm.
And those children go from foster care family to family, some loving, some abusive, some anywhere in between, right?
Mhm.
And then from family to family to family, then off the books. And that when they go off the books, they'll say, oh, if anybody ever does come to check, a lot of times they don't. But if they come to check, oh, they ran away. We don't know. They're just gone.
Wow.
Or maybe they sold the child. And that from there, that's when the child gets bought and sold like a sack of potatoes,
Mhm.
organ
Do they get
harvested.
sent out of the country mostly when
Sometimes,
that
yeah.
happens? Yeah.
We've learned that when they start to age out, in other words, when they get to be older than the perverts get off on,
Yeah.
they'll send them down to Mexico for ritual sacrifices or for gang initiations or things like that, or just for organ harvesting.
I
They'll
I was
take
gonna
all
say, yeah.
their organs and just and they don't survive that, obviously.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I think
Wow.
in the United States, what we're finding through hundreds and hundreds of survivors is
Mhm.
through organized religion. There are percentages of some at the very top who are actually Satanists, and so they'll pretend to be a Jesus person or religion in the light of day, and then in the dark of night they put on their robes and they're doing this sick things to children that you only see in bed.
Mhm. I've heard this too, and I've heard
And
that the CIA is behind a lot of this. Um
that's our understanding too.
Mhm.
And a lot of people will be in a part of contracts because they just want the money. They may
Mhm.
know that it's not quite right, but they don't see into it too far. And other guys, no doubt, probably
Mhm.
putting hands on
Mhm.
kids and physically moving them for these monsters. I can't I can't reconcile, Mary, how anyone could go from one day swearing an oath to our Constitution
Mhm.
and then eventually at some point moving a precious child to deliver them to the hands of
Mhm.
unspeakable uh,
Mhm.
horror and death.
Yeah.
We pray so hard over this, and we've been begging for relief for the children, and it's so beautiful that this administration is coming against all odds, and
Mhm.
that's why there's such a gnashing of teeth by the wicked. They're so panicked. They're so
Yeah.
frantic. They're so
Yeah.
desperate not to be brought to account for what they've been doing and what the evidence demonstrates that they are doing, that they can only
Mhm.
survive when there's utter corruption across the top of the board. So
Yeah.
now, if
Yeah.
we revamp and reestablish legitimacy in our DOJ, and we go after and we start investigating and prosecuting in good faith, there will
Mhm.
be a staggering number of people who have submitted to just doing unspeakable evil to
Mhm.
children because, again, it's in the different organized groups. It's in the lodges, a lot of men's lodges. They've got a lot of different names.
Mhm.
Most of them, by understanding, at the very top ranks. Now, you may spend 10 or 20 years getting to the upper ranks of your lodge and your men's secret institution, and you think it's good, and they talk about wholesome stuff until one night you're to be promoted into the upper ranks and you're
Mm.
initiated, and then you see that it's utterly satanic.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
they slaughter children for the wealth and the power that they enjoy, and that's what it's really all about. And those in the lower ranks will defend those institutions so passionately. I've never seen anything. Well, yeah, are you one of the top guys? And have you been to the other ones? Because
Mhm.
why are we talking to so many good people who have been through things that they can factually demonstrate in their
Yeah.
testimony? We're not talking about one or two or five or 20 or 100 people. We're talking about hundreds of survivors of
Mhm.
satanic ritual abuse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the facts make themselves pretty evident very, very clearly, pretty quickly. So that is ultimately
Mhm.
where I believe these children are going to, a big meat grinder that they don't survive, and it's just unspeakable. And I'm so grateful that this is all going to be exposed, or I pray
Mhm.
that it's fully exposed. I think that's one of the biggest things that can happen. Not only we enforce the law and we prosecute these monsters, but we make the information, Mary, factually and very clearly available, systematically available to the people, almost like a compulsory education. Like, here is what you, the American taxpayer and voting citizen,
Yeah.
need to know
Yeah.
before you should be allowed to vote on anything. Because if you don't understand why these people
Mhm.
want power, how can, how can you vote? How can you vote in your own best interest if you don't
Mhm.
even know the higher level of what's really going on? So
Well,
we've
and we've
been
had the
deceived.
suppression, we've had the censorship, and this is
Yeah.
the other issue with Elon Musk buying X. I think that some of the other platforms are also gonna do a turnaround. I think that they're gonna find that it's in their best interest to allow the truth to get out. I hope and pray that that happens, but, the media has been complicit,
Yeah.
and, for example, Pizzagate, right? That story, anybody that reported on that, Liz Crokin, for example, that was actually being reported on, early on, like in 2015, 2016. We I don't wanna go into too much detail about it right now, but, Joe Rogan just recently said, "I thought that all of that was just baseless conspiracy, and now I'm eating my words because everything that I have seen has shown me that this is true, that and that, politicians are literally, like, ordering children, like food items, and we know from FBI, files that there's certain symbols and code words that people use in these rituals to identify a child, a girl, a boy, things like this. I'm sure you could elaborate on that. But, the exposure that you're talking about absolutely has to happen. And it's with voices of, people like me, having you on my show, people on X, people on platforms that have pushed back against the censorship industrial complex. And I think that there are many, many people who, as they wake up, as they get exposure, as they start to get on X, as they start to watch shows like mine, they they didn't know what they didn't know because they were being fed by the media, by legacy media, and their day is done. The legacy
Thank God.
media
Yeah, because
is
that level of subversion, that level of betrayal and disinformation
Yes.
by a corrupt media is unsustainable. Our nation, I could walk down the street and knock on a neighbor's door and ask them what's going on, and they may be horrified that this monster is won the presidency and he's going to come take their child from them and put them in a prison because their child is gender confused because he's such a monster. Like, they believe things that are
Yeah.
so far off the map of anything that's true because Rachel Maddow told them so.
Yeah.
She told
Yeah.
them so, and they believe it.
Mhm.
So that's unsustainable. There's so much chaos and confusion
Yeah.
by the systematic disinformation and the lying to our people
Mhm.
by the fake news media that is unsustainable. So that has to
Yeah.
be dealt with. And big tech, the censorship. If you or I post the truth, well, it's going to get censored on
Mhm.
a lot of the big tech
Sure.
platforms
Yeah.
because the people that own them are all the same. If you trace all the owners, they all subscribe to the same code, which is global Marxism. And in global Marxism, there's no God. It's a satanic, it's a Luciferian,
Mhm.
godless
Mhm.
society that's all consolidated globally under one umbrella. So there's
Mhm.
not a United States in their model. That's why
Right.
they're willing to run the Cloward Piven plan at full bore to break the economy. That's why they're
Eradicate
squandering
borders.
our
Yeah.
money. That's why they're abandoning our borders. That's
Mhm.
why they're
Mhm.
demoralizing our law enforcement and dividing and conquering us through all these strategies and just
Mhm. Yeah.
degrading everything because they mean to break our United States. And we, the people, have to
Yes.
realize that those who have wielded power have betrayed us so badly that they have been literally lying to us with complete
Yeah.
hostility. And once we
Yeah.
can comprehend and accept that, then we can look behind the curtain a little bit and go, oh, okay, now we can see the factual evidence and start to process it and comprehend what that means and realize we
Mhm.
have to change this, that we have to cooperate with the incoming administration and restore legitimacy to our DOJ and prosecute those who are betraying us, no matter what their title. Look,
Mhm.
at Vets for Child Rescue, we've arrested federal agents that comfort children, LDS church elder, and there will be more. Trust me, U.S. Army recruiter,
Mhm.
illegal aliens, a sheriff's brother. I mean, and a lot of times when law enforcement operations are run, if there's somebody that's on the protected list, yeah, he's diplomat.
Mhm.
We just don't kind of really
Mhm.
process that because it's inconvenient. Well, that's for child rescue. We don't
Yeah.
care. We
Yeah.
care about. We value the welfare of the child and the children more than anybody's name or institution, and
Mhm.
that's how we all should be. That's righteous.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm a perfect human being. I've never met one, but we are trying our level best, and that scares a lot of people. And I think that's why we have such a defamatory attack by the political left who pay people to smear us and my name to try to reduce our support for the mission because we don't
Yeah.
care who the people are. We
Yeah.
protect the people, the children in good faith, and we arrest and prosecute with a 100% conviction rate, no matter the title or status. That scares a lot of people. And that's what scares a lot of people about some people like Donald Trump and RFK Jr., because they have been abused and their families have been abused. And they're going to hold to the letter of the law. And you're
Yeah.
probably not going to see a lot of special favors. At least I hope you don't. I hope they call balls and strikes accurately without favoritism because too many people, not to mention the Clintons' names, but people need to be held to account for the
Yeah.
crimes against the American people that they've gotten
Yeah.
away over the
I
decades.
just saw a story today, that the incident commander, for the Maui fires has been arrested, actually turned himself in to authorities, on a warrant for, raping a 12-year-old.
Mhm.
Repeatedly over years, and this is the thing, people in positions of authority are the ones who are doing this,
Yeah,
and, in the church, in positions of law enforcement, all of these leadership positions, and like you're saying, it's time to call balls and strikes, and nobody gets off on this, in this life or in the one after,
yeah,
um, because it's enough is enough. And if this is happening, in our country, I can't just imagine what's happening in countries where there is no rule, like no rule of law at all, right? Um, but it just it has to stop. And I really thankful for organizations like yours that are doing what they're doing. There's so many organizations out there. Tell our listeners your website, because you have such a your website is really good and it has a lot of information. There's ways that people can donate and support you. You are a nonprofit. Um, just tell everybody where they can find you.
Thank you, Mary. Our website is V as in veteran, the number 4, C as in children, and R as in rescue. So v4cr.org. And if you go there, there's so many tools there on how to empower yourself to defend your children. Please share Contraland, our documentary that's also linked there.
Yep.
Everybody that you know, please connect us to DAs that'll prosecute. We'll come to your town and help round up a lot of predators and put them in prison so that your children are safer, and celebrate your law enforcement for having worked with us. So
And
there's a lot
do
that
you
we
work with sheriffs too, constitutional sheriffs?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Love them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So this is good. A call to action. If you are in a town that has a righteous DA, a constitutional sheriff who is enforcing rule of law, contact Craig's organization, Veterans for Child Rescue, to come to your town and help eradicate this scourge on the earth. Do you have any final words for our audience today?
I would just encourage everybody. A lot of people say nice things about us. They call us nice names for doing what we do, and I could say, man, we can all be part of the solution, and that's a beautiful thing. When there are
Mm.
so many that need help, and there's so much that can be done, every one of us get to be a part of the big win and the solution. And if you try it, if you do a little something to help somebody, you will feel better, and it's contagious, and it just may be something that changes who you are, and you may look in the mirror and like yourself a whole lot better. So there's good news, there's opportunity for us all to help in some way. So God bless our country. We're grateful for this turnaround in leadership and look forward to reestablishing righteous justice and the
Thank
rule
you.
of law.
Thank you. Everybody, please come back to Mary Grace Media for more shows like this. We actually have a couple of great shows coming this week. MaryGraceMedia.com. Get on the email list. You will get an email before we have our live streams. And as usual, please follow all of the channels. Get on my non-censorship channels so that you can find me no matter what happens. And that's another reason to get on the mailing list. Craig Sawyer, Veterans for Child Rescue. It's been a pleasure having you here. And everybody, we will see